Welcome to the Science for Sport podcast, where we dive into stories and insights that drive peak performance. Join us as we uncover the secrets behind the science of success. Here's your host, Richard Graves.
Hello and welcome to the Science for Sport podcast with me, Richard Graves. On this week's show, we're looking at treating athletes as human beings. We focus on some of the mental health challenges that can be faced over the course of a professional career in sport and how recognising your own vulnerabilities can actually be beneficial to an athlete, as can immersing yourself in a supportive environment when that time comes to call it a day on a professional career. Dr. Kristin Keim is an American sports psychologist who specialises in this area, and we can hear from her now.
Unlocking sports science to push the limits of human potential. This is the Science for Sport podcast.
Well, Dr. Kristin Keim, welcome along to the show, all the way from South Carolina over there in the United States. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on the program today.
As we are indeed excited to have you. For those that aren't perhaps familiar with your history, we'll bring them up to speed because you're a former competitive cyclist. You're also a qualified clinical sports psychologist. You've done research focusing on mild traumatic brain injuries. You help athletes recover from concussion, along with performance pressures, and importantly, that transition at the end of their careers to a life away from sport. It's been quite a journey to get to this point. So tell us a little bit about it and some of the things that you've encountered.
No, I think it has been a journey. It's interesting because I think a lot of times when people go into psychology, it was interesting when I went into my grad program because I just realized, wow, I thought there would be more students and colleagues in those programs that had undergrad and psychology. And this might kind of worry people. I did have to take it to get into grad school, but I didn't even take your Psych 101 class in college. Now, I basically got a minor in sociology, and my degree was in, and I don't know a lot of the difference. I know a little bit about the education systems in other countries. I do try to understand those things. Plus, I work with athletes all over the world, so I am so grateful that I get to learn about other educational institutes. But here in America, when you get a Bachelor of Arts, really the last 2 years, which makes it different in America, which has its pros and cons, is about your degree, really. So all those first few years is just a wide breadth of classes. Well, the one class I never really could get into because of a lot of issues with scheduling was your Psych 101. But when you get a degree in advertising and journalism here in America, especially at the Grady School in University of Georgia, which is one of the prominent journalism colleges here in America and in the world, it's one of the best. It was heavy in psychology because and again, when you're writing or you're selling products and marketing, it is a lot about behavior. So I think that was when I first kind of started to realize, wow, I'm really into this. And having a background in performance with theater and dance and being a lifelong competitive athlete, I think I was always very into the human behavior kind of mental side. My family also has a very complicated history with a lot of mental illness, and I was very aware of that. We were very open. My mom's is a retired nurse, so we talked about our physical and mental health. And so I think that kind of journey has always been a thread. I think the thing that's interesting is the kind of sport psychology piece, because I really went to school just to be a sport consultant. I never really thought, wow, I'm going to go into clinical until I got into the program and I realized that being a sport psychology consultant is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And it's very positive and strength-based. And I think it's one of the best parts of what has taught me to be who I am. But I had some professors who were kind of I think the way that your brain works and conceptualizes and the kind of clients that you probably want to work with, looking at your history as a high performer, and just kind of, wanting to work with like Olympic level, they were, even in the early mid 2000s, were, savvy enough to be like, I know this is a big task, but maybe you need to look into going more clinical. And I feel like that's still something even today that a lot of people don't understand. And sometimes I feel really weird even saying that I'm a clinical sports psychologist, because I think, again, people just think athletes. And I really have been trying the last few years to let people know, like, athletes are just human beings, and athletes, there's a cultural aspect I feel like is the big difference. Is someone in sports psychology would maybe be taught through a textbook and through internships more about how our culture of whatever we choose to do impacts us. And I feel like that is something that I would love to share right now about my journey, is that through all the vast cultural aspects of gender and race and every kind of macroaggressions, anything like that, it's like any culture, it is very prominent in sport as well. And I feel like that is what qualifies me more, is understanding it from the context of human performance and the cultures of sports. And so when I get a new athlete, say it's an equestrian rider or a lacrosse player somewhere where I obviously did not play the sport, and also I don't really have any experience with, but I do my homework. Just like any patient that comes into any therapist, you are not that person. You have to put your biases, you're taught this, transparent. You put your bias, you own your biases, you need to understand them, and then you put them away. And I feel like that's the biggest journey of who I am today, is being very confident in the way that I really respect the clinical side married with more of the performance side. And then I think just trying to be a voice to help people understand that, like, athletes are just human beings and they are going to be flawed and they're going to have issues, but it's the pressures that maybe a lot of people don't realize. And again, this isn't like saying, oh, we need to feel sorry for them, but there are some complexities that are very different for athletes, because again, like, when I work with a person who's not a high performing athlete on a team, they have all kinds of issues with their family, their work, it's complex. But when you're an athlete, you have those. Then you also have your teammates and the culture of the sport and the management and so it's literally like when I work with one athlete, I feel like I'm working with 5 people, like,
Well,
at one
let's
time.
explore that a little bit further
Yeah.
then, because I think it's very easy for us to use the term sports psychology, and from the outside at least, there'll be a perception of it's one size fits all. It's all about having a positive mental mindset
Exactly.
and approaching
Exactly.
each challenge
Yep.
with the aim of winning. What you seem to be saying is that actually it not only changes from sport to sport, it changes from person to person. And in order to optimize performance, get the best out of an individual, as a clinical sports psychologist yourself, I'm guessing you're going to have to adapt along the way as well.
Exactly. And I feel like I feel it's my own thing that I have to work on, is that I don't want to say it's less than, because this is my view and my feeling. But I do think when I would say I'm a clinical sports psychologist or sports psychologist, it has not changed from 2015. Or I just think, again, people, like, I used to go on airplanes, and if I was okay to talk about it, and I had a teacher who said that, it's like, you should be able to get on an airplane and describe what a sports psychologist is. I'm so blessed, because if I got onto an airplane tomorrow and someone sat next to me said, what do you do for a living? I would end up, if I wanted to, talking for 5 hours straight about my beautiful job. I am gifted, because I'm pretty sure accountants wouldn't be able to maybe say the same thing, right? I'm just kind of teasing up my accountant friends, but if I also really do not want to talk, and this happens, I mean, I used to fly over the world all the time with my athletes. I literally would just lie or make up another job or something. Like, I just, something very, like, not engaging, because I just really did want to sleep and not, which is a gift. But also, I think I would say the entire 5 hours was really describing and busting myths or misconceptions of what sports psychology is.
I guess as well that there are very different aspects to this. For example, if
And
you've
that's also
broken
the
a bone
problem
and
with
you're on,
any mental health.
well, exactly. If you've broken a bone and it's a physical, tangible injury, then athletes can come to you, and it's something everybody can see. There's progress, be it day by
Yep.
day, week by week. However, if we go back to some of the areas you focus your research on, mild traumatic brain injuries, that's not something that even in this modern day and age people necessarily fully understand, be it the person involved or people outside as well. So how do you handle that?
Well, I mean, look how far we had come with the NFL, and now they just cut all the budget for that, and no one's really making a big deal about it. Just, oh yeah, we're just going to cut all the. I mean, oh my God! I mean, it was amazing to see that growth, and people don't understand when you cut something like that out. That there goes 10 years plus of advancing it an itty bitty bit. But again, it's that you can't, it's not a tangible, and then we have research and evidence based and, empirical evidence and all the stuff. I still just think that people, I mean, I know again, we're doing better when it comes to mental health. I don't want to negate that, but it still has so far to go. I think what people forget about in science is that our mental health is a science. This is not just some magical thing that you make up. It is very part of our health. And I feel like we still talk in the abstract of cutting our head off from our body and not really still, it's kind of like trying to figure out a way to talk about this and normalize it. Because, I mean, honestly, everyone has experienced anxiety or depression. I mean, you're not living and breathing today if you haven't, but it's shades of gray. And I think we like to put things in box and we like to make it black and white. And this is one area where it's not. I mean, yes, you break a bone, you break a bone. But when your brain is broken, literally, like in traumatic brain injuries, it really, I mean, the best way to describe it is when it comes to mental health, especially when it comes to any injury with the brain, it's a snowflake. There's no two alike. And I mean, I'm not saying that to be cute. It is we at least 100% know that. There's literally no one who will ever have, you could almost have the exact fracture of a hairline or something, right? As maybe someone else in the whole breadth of humanity, right? But you will never have two depressions or panic attacks that ever, and I feel like that is, yes, it's overwhelming because that is really a big thing to concept, but we don't need to look at it that way. We just need to say, hey, you've had a panic attack? The first time I took my licensing exam, I had to walk out. I had a panic attack. Never had a panic attack. And instead of freaking out, you know what I did? I said, this is awesome. Now I really understand what my clients who have panic attacks, like literally, I'm like, and if I would be more concerned if I didn't look at it that way, about to be a psychologist where I will be dealing with little 5-year-olds having panic attacks, 8-year-olds having panic attacks. I don't think I've ever had an Olympian athlete who's never had a panic attack in their life. Like, not all of everyone I've ever worked with had panic attacks. That's a very physical. Depression is a very physical, but we still want to cut the head off and make it like, oh, that's their thing. They have depression. And I'm like, you have too. Yours may not be to the clinical thing where you think you need to go to therapy or get on medication, but unless you live on some fantasy land of optimism and never had a death, never gotten, had a breakup, never had, lost your job, never had, I don't know, got bullied in middle school, right? Like, then you're in denial and not in tune with your own well-being if you're not acknowledging that as being a human alive, breathing, you will have anxiety and you will have depression. And that's not a weakness. That's just humanity. That's just part of being a human being. And it's okay to have these things.
So as a clinician then, how do you deal with these things? Because I think it's important that our listeners are aware as well that as a cyclist, you suffered a concussion, you've been through this, you've had your own health issues, you've spoken widely about the autoimmune disorder you've had to deal with. So you've not only worked with clients and patients on these issues, but you've experienced them yourself. So you do have firsthand experience, and I guess that shapes how you work now.
I mean, I think the best thing, so speaking of like magical crystals, I went to a friend who she kind of does like, I don't want to say readings, but she kind of does some chart stuff. And I explored it because I had an athlete who did it, and it really and she was not she literally was one of the last human beings I ever thought would do that. And I was just sort of like surprised. So I was like, oh, well, cool, I'm going to do it. And this is right when I got diagnosed with my rare disease. I was like, hey, I'll try anything. And this was she was once a professional athlete, one of like best in the world. So I was like, I don't really see her as a gimmick. I was like, hey, I'm just going to read the charts or whatever. But, no matter what came out of it, she said the most profound stuff, which was literally what my mom and my sister kept saying, that, the universe doesn't give you anything you can't handle. But also, if you're really going to work with people, the more that you have been broken, face challenges, and just now you really, again, it's not that I have the same challenge as you, but it's a empathy muscle and a compassionate muscle that I think helps me in my situation versus, I can't change it. It's like, yeah, I can get on my little woo-woo and, oh my God, it sucks. I have all these things. Or I can be like, maybe I was given these things because I can handle it. And if I can handle it, how do I turn it into something positive? And that is just being able to help people, even if they've never even had anything broken with them. It still gives me a different lens of appreciation to help them even maybe think about that. Like, you think you're going through a lot of challenges right now, but look at all the things that are going right in your life, and don't lose perspective of that. And I feel like that's the same lens that I have, because now I had chronic severe pain for 6 years. 2 years ago, it got better. I'm not giving up that I can't get better, but holy heck, that really changed my lens of, I will never complain about anything again, because at least I don't have that. Doesn't mean I don't want to still get better, but I also would never, and my God, I would never say, I wish I never had those 6 years, because 8 years of school, 15 years of working as a sports psychologist, those 6 years taught me more about mental health, the mind-body connection, and my own identity, my own, kind of learning about how strong I am, not winning mountaintop bike races, not, getting a PhD, none of that. No. Surviving 6 years of chronic pain daily taught me how strong I am.
Well, I was going to say on that note, how much has that shaped the work you do now with clients, and specifically talking about this transition period from being a professional athlete where all you've known every day is get up, training regime, dietary requirements, competitive action, to then transitioning to a life away from sport where, unless you're particularly disciplined, that framework suddenly disappears and you've got to learn to both cope and live with that.
Yeah, no, it's very powerful. I mean, I think, I kind of say sometimes I think athletes are like in that stage of, like a teenager where they just think they're not like, they don't have any vulnerabilities, right? Like, they're just going to be like this all the time and the world's perfect. I try to like teach them that they are vulnerable, that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have weaknesses, because I think that that's something that you have to be very careful with, like who your coaches are, who's in your village, who do you surround yourself with. And you need to have people that are going to be real with you, because if you have people that are only endorsing this, idea that you can control all these things, then when you obviously do break something or get diagnosed with a, rare disease, because literally, like, I didn't do anything to deserve it. It just happened. It's called genetics or whatever, right? it sucked, but I totally landed on a pillow. I was totally okay and prepared because of just my whole life having had challenges. I think when you aren't challenged, it's funny. I had an Australian athlete one time, and she actually got worried. She was like, I've been fed a silver spoon. I literally went into the sport with the best Australian help, got on the best, like everything has happened so easily that she actually had the insight, which made her profoundly an amazing athlete, that she wanted struggle. So she quit a great team to go to Europe and get on a lower team so that she could be really challenged. And I was like, so I can't, if I was to tell someone to do that, they would probably literally fire me. First off, I probably wouldn't work with anyone that would not want to do something like that. So it's like, I knew that this kid was talented, and yes, she was given a silver spoon, but I knew that there was something about her, an it factor that I don't have magic fairy dust for, but it was that they seek out the hard competition. True competitors, they don't feel invulnerable. Like they want to have teammates that are better than them. They want to be on teams that will push them. Like they seek out challenges and hardships. I think we get too, words are powerful, and we say, oh, I want to go on a challenging ride. Well, describe to me. I have to ask athletes this. I'm like, so why is that challenging? You just say it like it's a hard ride that you do every week. So how is doing the same training routes where you're setting these PRs and stuff really going to help you in a race where it might be the same course as last year, but 100% a different group of women racing or men racing, 100% different weather, different teams, different you're training, right? So I think, again, like that kind of comes down to the same idea of, seeking out something that is, so, again, how are you framing it as, I see this challenge, and a challenge isn't a negative thing, but why is it really being seen as a challenge, if that makes sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And I wonder, as we draw to the end of this episode, for those sports psychologists out there, those that are training to be sports psychologists, from all your wealth of experience over the years working with athletes from different fields, be it track and field, skiing, dancing, football, soccer as it is in the States. If there's one piece of advice, one nugget you could offer them to help them along the way, what would that be?
Why do you do this? I think that's the number one thing. Like, when someone reaches out to me, and that was another part I want to talk about. Like, so when someone wants to reach out to me, I'm not going to just say, yeah. Like, it's not like I'm just going to be like, sure, here, I'm going to work with you. No, I think it's I don't think coaches should do that either. I feel like you need to really understand, I'm coming onto your village. I'm coming to be part of your team. I feel like it should be like that as a normal therapy session. You should, having sessions with parents. You should have sessions with kids and husbands. And not right at the get-go, but yeah, it should be. It takes a village, and it really does for athletics. And I feel like that's number one thing that I do is I'm interviewing the client, the athlete, as much as they should be interviewing me. That's why if you go to my social media, I haven't been engaged as much, but if you go to my website or my social media and you're like, wow, like I get this, like I like her messages, then you're probably a good fit for me. But if you read something or see something and you're kind of like, then probably we aren't going to be a good fit. So save us both time. And I've had people leave, but once I've worked with you, the door's always open. Like there's professional and there's personal, and I understand boundaries. And I agree that you're leaving, but I understand it has nothing to do with me most of the time, as a therapist, I understand that. So, and I've had people leave and come back, and yeah, nothing. We might actually work better this time together. But it's fascinating how many people at even the top level who've gone to the Olympics twice have never actually sat with why they do this. So whether you're just training for a marathon, it doesn't matter. This doesn't need to be a professional athlete. But I know even if you're just playing tennis locally or running a marathon, it is taking time and energy, and it is part of your identity, and it is impacting your social life. So you better understand why you're doing it, because you will never reach your optimal level if you don't understand the why.
Yeah, for sure. And since you mentioned social media there, for our listeners and viewers on our YouTube channel, if they want to hear more about what's going on, what you're doing, who you're working with, where can they find you on social media?
It's KeimPerformanceConsulting.com is the website, and it is about to go under some. I'm currently trying to beef it up and get a new one, so you can go on there and get the basics. But I will have a more updated one soon. And then I stopped with X. So my account's on there with all my years. I mean, I literally was like one of the first people on Twitter. So there's lots of and I didn't delete it. I was going to, and I was sort of like, no, like there's a lot of and honestly, I became who I am because of Twitter. Like Twitter is not just X, so I had to understand the history of it. I'm like, no, I'll leave it up there. But I don't engage on it. I haven't for 2 years. Instagram probably has the most current kind of information about my work and clients. And, and I have clients who share working with me through the years. I won't say it unless, they've put it out there. I'm very, confidentiality and all that. But I also am trying to work on breaking that stigma that, nowadays it's totally normalized that most top athletes work with sports psychologists, and we still have some work to do on that. But hopefully after hearing and, seeing me, you can understand, like, just people helping people at the end of the day. It's not really rocket science.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Listen, I've loved your passion, loved your energy. I found your insight fascinating. Dr. Kristin Keim, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks for having me on today.
Unlocking sports science to push the limits of human potential. This is the Science for Sport podcast.
Huge thanks to Dr. Kristin Keim for coming on the show and sharing her wealth of knowledge and experience in this field. If what you had to say was of interest and you want to know more, you can do so by visiting our website, www.scienceforsport.com. And if you've enjoyed this particular episode, please do feel free to share it with a coach, a colleague, an athlete, or a friend. Remember, the more downloads we get, the easier it becomes for us to attract top-name athletes and leading professionals at the cutting edge of their field, such as Dr. Keim, onto the show. Well, that is just about all for this week. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to the next time we can talk again on the next edition of the Science for Sport podcast.
Subscribe to the Science for Sport podcast now, wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more insights, resources, and to join the Academy, visit scienceforsport.com and connect with us on social media by searching for @ScienceForSport. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.